Good morning, guys. Welcome to another vlog. So today we're starting out figuring out how to brew beer. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I have a very limited knowledge of brewing beer. I'm not following a recipe. It might get messy, I don't know, but I've wanted to try this for a long time, so we're just gonna jump in and do it. So my whole idea is to make two different brews. We're gonna be using 4-liter carboys, one for an alcoholic version of the beer and one for a non-alcoholic version of the beer. We're gonna be using the grain twice. We're gonna be brewing in a bag. Step one, of course, if you know anything about home brewing, is to clean. I don't have a scale. I don't have any fancy equipment whatsoever, so we're gonna be guessing for some of this stuff, but let's just go ahead and start doing the process. Alright, so after about probably close to an hour, maybe half an hour, I've only done the cleaning step. Half of the cleaning step. The next part of the cleaning step is to sanitize everything. So I'm about to mix up the sanitizer, throw everything in there, let that soak for a little bit before getting to the actual brewing part. It's gonna be a long process, a long day. So let's get everything sanitized so that we can get the mash going. Cleaning stage is finally done. Everything is sanitized and I've got my water on the burner on the stove right now, just warming up. We're gonna let the grains soak in hot water for an hour. This stage is called mashing, I believe. If you're a home brewer, I'm sure I'm doing a million things wrong. I really don't care. I'm just trying to get started and try it without making it overcomplicated. So this is very basic, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's totally fine. I just want to try it this way on my own first before having to buy a bunch of other equipment. So water is warming up, and then we're gonna get the grains in the bag. Getting really close to the end of the mashing portion. I actually just tried a little tiny bit of the wort of the hot water that the grain is sitting in, and it's extremely sweet. It actually tastes like really good. I've never tried that before. I'm gonna be doing little samples throughout this whole process because I'm really curious what it tastes like at each stage, and if I can tell if it's like not gonna turn out well or not by tasting it throughout the process. Of course, doing that all in a very sanitary way to make sure it doesn't get contaminated. In about 15 minutes, we're gonna be done this stage. Then I'm going to lift all of the grain out, drain it, put it aside, and then start the boil for this batch. And I will be reusing that grain for the second batch. And then we're also gonna be making some granola out of the spent grain to try and eliminate the majority of the waste here. So let's keep going through the process. Boil portion is done now. I've just put the pot into the sink with a bunch of cold water in it to try to cool it down as quick as possible. Once it's cooled down to about 27 degrees Celsius, it's gonna go into the carboys along with the yeast. I did end up trying the beer once the first set of bittering hops went in, and it did not taste good whatsoever. It was just super bitter. I know that will mellow out as it goes down the road in the next few weeks and ferments. But not feeling super confident. I feel like maybe there was a few things I could have done differently. I've lost probably nearly 2 liters of water, which I started with 4, so I probably should have started with more water, but we're gonna do another brew right after this. We're gonna do the non-alcoholic brew right after this. So once we're done this stage here of cooling down, the beer and then putting it into the carboys, we can start on the second batch. It is 12:30 at the minute. I think I started this around 9:30, I want to say. So it's going to be another few hours to do the second batch. I probably will not commentate on the second batch a whole lot because it's exactly the same process. We're just using the grain from the first brew in the second one to try to get a non-alcoholic beer. I was just taking the gravity reading and it turns out it is way too strong. It's sitting at 182, whatever that means. Usually I've seen this expressed as like a decimal, so I'm assuming it's 1.82, but on the actual hydrometer it says 182 or 70. It says it's going to be around 10% ABV, which is way too high. This means there's like way too much sugar in there. So I'm in the process of boiling some water, going to dilute it and hope that that fixes it, because I definitely don't want it to go into the fermenter thinking it's going to turn into 10%. We want it to be about half of that. We're going to try and fix this. I've had some time to just freshen up, relax a little bit before doing this second brew. We've got the mash going right now with the original grain that I used for the first brew. So it's almost done at this point. We've got like 7 more minutes. And what I'm gonna do with the spent grain is make some granola, like I mentioned earlier. So I've got a bunch of ingredients that I'm gonna throw into that. Put it in the oven at the lowest possible temperature and just let it sit in there for a while to let it really dry out and kind of clump together to make a nice granola. The rest of the brewing process is going to be pretty much identical to the first one that I filmed, except I did start with 6 liters of water for this one instead of 4 because I ended up losing quite a bit of water in the boil, which I didn't really account for, although I should have. I should have known that that was going to happen, but no big deal. We're starting this second brew, which is going to be the 0 alcohol brew, with hopefully the right amount of water. So I will check back in with you guys when we get to the stage of testing the gravity to see if this was successful or not. Welcome back to the homebrew. Today we're going to try to find out if the first fermentation stage is done. I'm going to be taking the beer out, grabbing some samples, testing the gravity to see where we're at. So I'm going to take a gravity measurement today, and then in a couple of days I'm going to redo it to see if there's any movement. If there is, that means fermentation is still happening, and I'm gonna have to wait a little bit longer to bottle the beer. So you can see on the right, that is the non-alcoholic beer. That one is quite a bit more yellowy and hazy. And then the beer on the left is the alcoholic one. It's got more of a caramel color to it, which is actually a little surprising to me. I thought it would be more on like the yellow pineapple-y side as well. So let's take these measurements and then we'll check back with you guys in a couple days. Guys, welcome to Friday. So it's been a couple days since I took my last gravity reading. Today we're going to be taking, hopefully, the final gravity reading, and if it's done fermenting, we're going to be bottling today. I'm going to pull out the alcoholic version of the beer and test that and make sure fermentation is done. Pretty sure fermentation is done. Gravity reading 2 days ago was the same as today. And the beer looks good. Like the color is really good. I can see there's a bit of like sediment in it, which is not really a huge deal. I think that'll go away once I filter it off the tube. Has a really nice, again, like pineapple-y tropical scent to it coming from those delicious Nectaron hops. I wasn't gonna try it, but I think I'll give it a little sip just to see if the flavor has changed at all over the last couple days. It's a little more bitter actually from the last sample. Nice flavor though. It's got just like a hint of carbonation. I think today's the day. I think we are going to bottle this very small amount of beer. And if it works out, great. We'll know in a couple weeks if it is actually good. Welcome to the patio and to the taste test. So this is our non-alcoholic and the alcoholic beer. So these are roughly based on a hazy IPA, and I have no idea what the carbonation is going to be like, so if it gets messy, you'll see it first. Moment of truth, guys. They made a noise, that's a good sign. And please don't judge me that I'm using a Gatorade bottle. It smells really good though. It's got a little bit of bubbles in it. This is the non-alcoholic one. That's actually not bad. It's pretty carbonated. It's got much more of like a malt flavor than I would want, but I did use a pilsner malt, so it's not bad. All right, starting off good. It's not great. It's not the best non-alcoholic beer ever, but I'm pretty impressed that this is what has come out of the process I did. It's definitely missing something. Could use a little more roundness to it. It's kind of flat, not in terms of carbonation, but in flavor, it's lacking a little bit of something. Like, it smells really good though. So let's move on to the alcoholic version of this. This one's a lot more full, so this one might actually be a little messy on the opening. There's a fizz. Oh wow, very different smell in the glass or the cup. I mean, almost like stone fruit smells on that. Moment of truth. It's not bad. It doesn't taste anything like the other beer though. Wow, it tastes totally different than the first one. It's not bad. I get stone fruit on that more than like citrus or mango or anything. It worked. I made beer and it's not horrible. I'm really surprised how good this turned out. It's not perfect. It could definitely use a little bit more carbonation, but for a first try, a first shot, without using a recipe, using all grain, pretty good. Like, I'm very surprised how well it turned out. Thanks for joining me for this homebrew vlog, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next one. Bye.